So today we're going to take a look at setting up a Windows machine. This is obviously a virtual machine that we're going to use for Hack the Box machines in future. The reason I'm setting up a new machine is because the previous VM that I was using was just the trial version of Windows that expires after 90 days. And it wouldn't accept my product key, which was a legitimate product key, but it wouldn't accept it in the trial. It has accepted it in this professional version, so that's fine. So what we're going to do is set this up, and I figured it would be a good time to kind of show you guys, because I've had a few comments from people asking like, what tools do you use? How do you set up like SMB shares and things like that on Windows machine for anonymous access so you can copy files from them on the Hack the Box machines? A few things like that. So I'm going to go through just setting up this VM completely from scratch. Now, spoiler alert, there isn't that much stuff that I install. Like, there's no script or program that I'm going to install that's going to completely change your life and suddenly make it really easy to hack Windows machines and stuff like that. There's nothing like that. So if you're expecting that, you're going to be disappointed. But yeah, I'll show you everything that I use. And bear in mind, I do tend to go for a slightly more manual approach than a lot of people when I'm doing Hack the Box machines. So yeah, there's probably a few less scripts and things than a lot of people. So I've made a list of all the things that I've had on the old VM. And we're just going to go through and install all these, and I'll kind of talk through why I'm using them as we go. So the first thing is Burp Suite, which is for manipulating HTTP requests. So we'll just get the free version, get community, download latest version. Obviously I will edit out the long, boring downloads and installs and stuff like that. But this one shouldn't take too long. And while we're doing that as well, I'm just going to do a couple of very basic things that I would do on a new machine. So we're just going to change the file explorer so that we can see hidden files and file extensions, and we'll also enable OS files to be visible as well. Burp Suite, the same one wants to install. I'm assuming most people know this stuff, but if you are completely new to Windows, here you go. This is how you see hidden files, file extensions, and OS files. You probably don't need to do the OS files one because this is just our host machine, but yeah, that's what I tend to do on most machines. So now when we go to like the C drive, we'll be able to see all the hidden files like the page file and stuff like that. So that's a very basic thing that I would do on a fresh VM. We'll just install this with all the defaults. Another thing I will do on this is if we just do start and run, so hold Windows key and press R, and just type firewall.cpl, then we can go in and turn off the Windows firewall. And obviously normally you wouldn't want to do this, but because this is a VM that we're going to be just using purely for attacking Hack the Box machines, we want to allow all connections inbound to us. Now you could, just set up separate rules and stuff every time you wanted to allow a new port in if you're running a Netcat listener or whatever on a different port, but it's a lot easier to just turn it all off. And again, we don't have any like important data or anything on here, so it's not like we really care about security on this machine that much. Having said that, obviously we don't want somebody to hack this machine, but just turning the firewall off doesn't instantly mean you're going to get hacked anyway. So we've got Burp Suite installed now. What's the next thing we're going to do? We'll do Impacket in Python. So let's just do Python for Windows. We'll download that. Now for Impacket, I can't remember if we need version 2.7 or version 3, but I'm going to go 2.7 because that's what I remember using before. You probably can use version 3, I don't know, but yeah, I think I had to do a 32-bit version for some reason. So we're going to do a 32-bit version of all the Python and Impacket stuff. And another thing we'll do while that's downloading is if we go to security, actually that's not the one I wanted, thank you Windows for getting that wrong. We want security and we want to turn off the antivirus, but I'm pretty sure on the desktop OS it turns itself back on after a while. So we'll go to virus and threat protection and we'll do manage settings, and then we'll just turn everything off because we don't want it to block all the things that we download. But like I say, I'm pretty sure it does turn itself back on after a while on the desktop OS. We can add some exclusions. Actually, let's just add an exclusion for like let's add a folder. Let's I'll say in the root of C, we're going to create a folder called HTB. That's where we're going to put all of our stuff. So we'll say that folder is excluded from antivirus. Whether that'll stop it from flagging certain things or not, I don't know. But anyway, yeah, let's install Python. And the reason we're installing Python is so that we can run the Impacket scripts, and a few other things that you might find online will be in Python. So it's always good to have. Yep, so it's going to just put it in Python 2.7. And we'll just say, yeah, install that default stuff. So while that's going, let's look at creating an SMB share. So again, if we go to the C drive, and we'll stick it just in the root of the C drive again. It's not very tidy, but whatever. And we'll just call it shared. And if we right click on a folder, go to properties, and then go to sharing, and then click on advanced sharing, Click share this folder, give it a share name, we'll just leave it as shared. Go onto permissions, click everyone full control. And this is actually what you would do in a network environment as well, like in a normal environment. And that sounds weird, but just hear me out. So you do full control on the share permissions, click OK. And then when you want to restrict it so that not everyone has access, you actually use the NTFS permissions, which is what these are. So the share permissions, you generally just ignore, just set to everyone full control, and then actually restrict things with this. There's no point having like two sets of permissions basically. So the share permissions generally just get ignored. So Python's finished installing there. So what we're going to do here, because we want anonymous access for this share, we want anyone to be allowed access to this because we're going to need to access it from the Hack the Box machines, which obviously won't be authenticated with our machine. So we're going to add guest. We'll do anonymous as well. And that should probably do actually just those two. So just anonymous and guest. The guest account is very important for this whole anonymous access thing. I don't really know why there's two accounts. You've got anonymous and guest, but generally I'll just allow things for both of those accounts if I want to do something anonymously. We'll say that they can modify this as well because we might want to actually write files to this share from the remote machines. So we'll just leave that like that. And now that it's shared, so if we were to go to like /localhost, we'll see that now we've got that SMB share there. We can get in. But to allow anonymous access, it's a little bit more complicated than that in Windows, unfortunately. I wish it was that simple, but unfortunately it's not. So if we go to start and run again, type in comp mgmt.msc, and then we go to enter. There's other ways to get to that. You can, I think you can right click on this. Now you have to go to more now because they just made things more complicated in Windows 10 for no reason. But anyway, yeah, there's other ways to get to this panel. It's just the computer management panel. But if we go into users, under here we'll see the guest is disabled. We need to enable them for anonymous access to work. So we'll untick account is disabled, click OK. And now there's one other thing that we should do to make sure anonymous access is going to work. If we go to start and we just type in local security policy, or just type in local and that's the first one that comes up. Local security policy. In a domain environment, like in a business network environment, you'd manage this stuff with group policy. Because this is just a separate standalone PC, we do it all through here. We go to local policies, security options, and then there's a load of stuff in here. One of them, there's guest account status, which we've already changed to enabled anyway in here. So we could have done that through here, but there's somewhere, I'm gonna have to find it. So we've got restrict anonymous access to name pipes and shares. I generally disable that. You can, in theory, like if you read the explanation, it's not worded very well, but I think in theory you're supposed to be able to leave that enabled and then just go to this, shares that can be accessed anonymously, and set the share in there. But personally I find it easier to just disable that altogether. And I think that's about it now for anonymous access. That should work. I'm trying to remember if off the top of my head there's any other stuff in here, because it can be pretty finicky. Like it can be pretty awkward trying to anonymously access this. In fact, we'll test it from my machine. So let's get the IP address of this machine. It's 0.56. My machine, if I go to //192.168.0.56. So that's weird. It says we've not been granted the requested logon type. Do we need to grant guest? I knew there was something else in here. Is it user rights assignment? Access this computer from the network, probably. Let's try that one. Let's add a user in there. Let's go guest. And we'll do anonymous as well, just because, like I say, that's I think there's also like deny. Ah, yeah, there we go. Deny access to this computer from the network. So that's what's doing it for us. So we'll click on them, remove them from there, and deny logon locally. Yeah, I guess we don't need logon locally. Although sometimes you'd be surprised what counts as a local logon. Like it's not just logging in like via the desktop. There's other things that can count as that. So we'll just remove it from there as well. Again, we're not super concerned with the security of this machine because it's just a VM that we're purely going to use for hack the box machines and stuff like that. I wouldn't recommend doing any of this stuff on a machine that you actually really care about. And also, just to make sure all that stuff takes effect, we'll do GP update, because even though this isn't group policy, it's still going to affect a lot of the same registry keys and things. So we'll just do a group policy just so it actually enforces those settings. So now let's try on my machine, see if we can go to, yeah, so there we go. Now we get on and we can get into this share, and we should be able to create things in here. We can, cool. So that all works. We've got anonymous access to this share, so that should be fine. for other machines on the Hack the Box network to access that share as well. So we'll close all that down. Shouldn't need any of that anymore, hopefully. Alright, so Python is installed, so I think now we'll just open that as administrator. A little tip for you, if you, like when I went on the start menu then, and you type something in, if you hold Control and Shift as you press Enter, it will launch it as administrator. So if I just press Enter, we just get a normal one. If I do that again, hold Control and Shift while I press Enter, we get the pop-up to open that. So yeah, let's do, I think it's pip install Impacket is the one that we want. No, pip is not in there, so that means we haven't added the Python thing to our path, I would assume. So if we go to properties of the computer, and we go to the path variable thing, so advanced system settings, and then somewhere we'll have environmental variables. There it is, environmental variables. And then, yeah, we've got path here. We could just do it for our user, I guess, but let's do it for everyone. Path here, we want to add C/Python 27 was the folder that we installed it to, wasn't it? So let's try that again. We'll probably have to start a new instance of this. Pip install Impacket. Nope, still doesn't like that. Was it scripts as well you maybe had to add? There was something, I can't remember where I found it now, but there's something that tipped me off the first time I used this that you have to add. Just make sure that did actually go in there. Yeah, Python 27 is in there. That was the right folder name, wasn't it? Let's just make sure we're not being stupid here. Python 27, yeah. For some reason I feel like scripts, oh yeah, because pip is in there. I mean, of course it's in scripts when it's not a script. Yeah, so we've got to add that as well. So we'll go path, edit, and we'll see slash. I think, again, I can't remember why or where I found that, but I think you need both of those in there. I might be wrong. So let's do this again. You might not need to run that as administrator as well. I'm just doing that so that we don't get any access denied errors. There we go, so now it's working. Oh, we also need the PyCrypto thing. In fact, I'm going to look for a blog post that I wrote on this because there we go. Because that explained exactly what I did the first time to install Python on here. So yeah, install x86 version of that. Install PyCrypto. So this is just for the cryptography stuff, obviously. Hence the name. So we'll install that now for all users. Install from registry. Oh, so it's found the Python 2.7 from the registry. Yeah, that's fine. Of course, that's installed. That seemed like it worked. It didn't complain about not finding the PyCrypto stuff. Now, the first time I tried to use it, let's just see if we can use anything there. So that seems to work. The first time I tried to use it, I had to also do this install PyASN1. So we're going to do that as well, just so that we don't have problems in future. Although I think I was getting like an error message. Pip install PyASN1. So it says it's already installed, so that's fine. So this time it has actually, I think it was pip install PyASN1 modules. Yeah, so I think it was the modules bit that wasn't installed by Impacket automatically or something. I can't remember. All I know is the first time I tried to do this, I got loads of errors saying that this modules thing wasn't installed. So we'll install that to start with and make sure that works. So let's just try. Yeah, so it seemed to load fine, but obviously we don't know until we actually test it fully. But yeah, that should be Impacket and Python installed now and all working. So next on the list, let's do Wireshark. That's always good for packet captures. And yeah, I'm not doing a very good job explaining why I'm installing each of these tools. For the Impacket tools, you'll see me use those in plenty of previous videos. If you've not seen the previous videos and you don't know what the Impacket tools are, just have a look on the channel. There's plenty of videos on Impacket tools. There's one on the secrets dump tool, one on the get NP users tool, and I'm working on another one at the moment on the get user SPNs tool. So yeah, there's plenty of videos there. So yeah, we're just going to install this all with the defaults. In fact, while it's going, we'll do something else as well. We're going to download the Microsoft, what they call remote management tools, or remote administration tools. There we go. Microsoft remote administration tools. Basically, the main reason I'm downloading this is just to get LDP, but there are some other tools in it that might come in handy at some point. Again, they don't label these things in a nice way. What do we want? Like, why can't like a company as big as Microsoft just give these files like a really easy to understand name? I don't understand why they have to be like so cryptic. Like, obviously x64 and x86 makes sense. Although, like, if you're fairly new to, you know, IT admin and stuff, you might not know that x86 means 32-bit. I'm going to assume WS means workstation, although we've also got WS for Windows Server. And then these are just the different release builds of Windows 10. But I don't know which build we're on, because they did that whole stupid thing with just calling it Windows 10 forever, because then you don't have different version numbers. But then it turns out you do need different version numbers because different things only work on certain versions. So then now we've just got like a hidden version number. In fact, let's find that. Where is that? Let's see what version we're on. Is it in here somewhere? No, that would be too easy. So how are you supposed to know which version you're on? So, everything was better in Windows 7. Take me back to those days. So it's just simpler time. Let's Google it while we wait. Start setting system about. Just type system in there. And then about somewhere down here in this dull grey menu. I'm sorry, I'm going to stop complaining about the operating system now. There we go, version 1809. Cool, which one did we download? I don't know, but it seems to be installing, so we'll just assume it's fine. So here we've got Wireshark and that installing. We'll also download LDAP browser. I can't remember who makes it. I think it's Softerra. Yeah, Softerra. So this is just an easy way to browse LDAP. LDP is also an LDAP browser, which is why we're installing these remote admin tools. But it's a bit clunky and a bit awkward to use. This one's a lot easier to use, but LDP is just kind of simpler and quicker and easier to use sometimes in like a real sort of basic scenarios. This is a bit better if you want to explore things in more detail. Some other tools related to Active Directory while I remember. If we go to CJWDEV.com, there are some AD tools in here. AD Permissions Reporter. Now these, this tool and the Softerra one that we downloaded, they're not like exploit tools or anything like that. They're just legitimate admin tools that admins would use. So we're just going to use them for like enumeration and stuff like that. They're not going to guide us straight to some kind of misconfiguration or exploit. They're just for exploring, really. So we downloaded that. There's some other tools on here that I wanted. I think AD Info as well. Yeah, it's just AD Info. Again, this is another like LDAP exploring tool, basically, or querying tool. One other thing we're going to do is if we go to appwiz.cpl, which is the add or remove programs thing, and then we go to turn Windows features on or off. We're going to install Telnet, because that is quite useful for just quickly testing network connections. We probably need Netcat for Windows. Again, just Google stuff, download that. We're also going to want Mimikatz, which will definitely get blocked by Windows, so we'll see if that that exclusion that we added has actually helped. If we go to the Releases tab, we should find the latest version here. Download the zip file. Netcat, yeah, so even Google blocks it, which is annoying. So now we have to go to Downloads and say Keep. We would like to keep this very dangerous file, even though it's not that dangerous. So we'll copy everything out of there and we'll stick it in our HTB folder, and hopefully that will keep it safe, but we'll see. Mimikatz. What else do we have installing? So the LDAP tool is finished installing. Oh yeah, we're going to install Telnet from here. So somewhere in here there is Telnet client. There was also services for NFS, which I ended up using for one of the Hack the Box machines, so we may as well put that on as well. I think that was the only thing that I ended up installing from this list, so that'll go through and install those. We'll stick some of this stuff in the shared folder because that's where we're going to be running it from most of the time. And we'll just copy it in there as well. So one other thing that we want is ysoserial, ysoserial.net. So this is a tool that helps you exploit various .NET serialization issues, binary formatter, JSON.NET formatter. There's loads of things basically. I'm not going to go into explaining all that. You've seen me use it in one of the boxes on Hack the Box already. I think it was called JSON. So we used it to exploit the JSON.NET like deserialization process there. But yeah, it's a useful tool. So we'll go to releases and download the latest version of that. So we're just going to grab all that, copy it into our location. Now this one we don't need in shared actually, we just want to put it into here because it's only something that we'll use on our own machine. It just basically generates a payload for us. So we'll call that YSO serial. Stick that in there. And what else do we need? Oh, shameless plug time. We need some of my tools. Let's go to my website, which at the moment is just a WordPress blog, so it's a bit rubbish. Like, look, we have to have the title there, otherwise WordPress isn't happy. So then it gets messy. Either way, we'll download both of these tools because they are useful. Otherwise, I wouldn't have made them. So this one is the GUI reverse shell that you saw me use in the last couple of videos. So we'll grab all that. So basically we can use that instead of Netcat. We'll stick that in there. And then the server side we'll copy into the shared bit. Because again, we're going to want to run that from there. So yeah, we can use that instead of Netcat like you saw me do in the last couple of videos. And then the other one that I often find myself using is PortTunnel, which again, there's a whole separate video explaining that. In fact, I've even linked to it there. What a nice guy I am. Even linked to my video there. So yeah, you can watch that video if you want to see exactly how this program works and what the point of it is. But for now, we will just download it. Grab that, copy that out of there. Stick that in our shared folder, because again, we're going to want to run that on the remote machines. And we're getting close to being done. We want some code editors, so let's do Notepad++. Oh, I've done that wrong. Hopefully it knows. Yeah, it knows. So download the latest version, please. Cool, install that. And we're also going to install Visual Studio Code, which is a similar, I guess, to Notepad++, but a bit more. I guess it's kind of like halfway between Notepad++ and halfway between like a full Visual Studio. It's kind of a lightweight version of Visual Studio. I'm not a huge fan of it. Most people really like it. I'm not a huge fan. Like if I want to write code, I want to have like a proper environment, not this kind of half lightweight version. Like I don't really see the advantage. Yeah, it starts up a little bit faster, but like, is that really worth the trade-off? I don't know. There's probably something that I'm missing, but yeah, I'm really not a huge fan of it. But the main reason I'm installing it is because then we can use it to edit Python code and do like breakpoints and everything, actually step through Python code. Maybe you can do that in the full version of Visual Studio as well. Maybe there's an extension for that, but I've not looked into it. I just remember when I first Googled it, like how to step through Python code in Windows, it was a lot of people were using Visual Studio Code. So that is what I use. So Visual Studio Code is open. So that seems to be happy. It's not complaining about needing to do any updates or anything. And then we're also going to download the full version of Visual Studio, the Community Edition. We'll just put Community on there. It took us to the same place anyway, didn't it? But whatever. Download Community version. It's completely free. And it, to be honest, it does pretty much everything most people are going to need. I don't want to do that. Go away, thanks. So we'll install this. This will take ages to install, but I won't bore you guys with that. In fact, like, what is the reason for using Visual Studio Code? Like, what's the selling point? IntelliSense, yeah, but the IntelliSense is way worse than it would be in proper Visual Studio. Debugging, again, you can do that like way better in the proper version. I don't understand. Someone educate me in the comments. Why is Visual Studio Code so popular? Like, what's great about it that you can't do in this? Is it just that this is like a bigger install and it's a bit of a heavier thing? But again, like if you're gonna do software development, surely you don't mind just a one-time long install to have a better experience for those thousands of hours that you might spend coding. I don't know, I don't get it. I've always had problems with it. Like it's like stuff just never works straight away for me in Visual Studio Code. There's always loads of little updates and configurations that need changing, and stuff's just not very intuitive the way it handles projects and folders and things. I know, I'm not a fan, but yeah, educate me in the comments what I'm missing. So on here, oh, so you can do Python. There we go. We'll do Python in Visual Studio, the proper version, and then we won't need Visual Studio Code. So we're going to do C++, .NET, and Python. I do want to get into ASP.NET web development, mainly so that I can just build some hack-the-box machines that like use websites and stuff for exploits. But yeah, they're the only things that I'm interested in. Obviously, you can tick whatever you want, so that will take forever to download and install. And yeah, one of the last things I can think of that we need is Hashcat. Hashcat for Windows. Now, if I remember rightly, there is actually a beta version. Is it Hashcat beta? No. Let's just search for Hashcat beta. Because the beta version actually has a few more options. There we go. Oh, so 7-zip we're going to need as well, actually. Because we're not going to be able to open that otherwise. 7-zip. We'll download the 64-bit version for Windows. Gotta love an unsigned installer prompt. Yep, install please. Although yeah, for some reason 7-zip never seems to automatically associate itself with zip files for me. Yeah, so for some reason we have to right click on it and go 7-zip and then open. Like, how? I just want to associate it with it. Oh right, so we've got like this weird system. That's a strange UI. Okay, so we'll say, oh, okay, you just click on them. And it does them. Then how do I not do them when I click on them? Oh right, so you don't have to press the plus, you can just click in the... Okay, this is a really odd UI, but whatever. So there we go, now we should have all the things that we want. Access denied, great. It's because we're trying to do it for all users. Let's just do it for us. Who cares about other users? Not me. So it did do it for me anyway, so that's fine. So now we should be able to go back in there, and we've got this really old school looking icon, which means it's going to open with 7-zip. Great. So let's extract that. We'll stick it in C/HTB. There is actually one other thing that I forgot to mention, so I'll just insert this somewhere in the video where it kind of makes sense if there is anywhere suitable. But yeah, this is just about setting the PowerShell trusted hosts, because if we try and do an TPS session and connect to some other machine here, put the IP address of the machine in there, it'll say that we don't trust that host and we can't connect to it. So I'm just going to Google PowerShell add trusted hosts, and then we'll do that as well. Now I find that there's a couple of different ways to do this. We're going to go for this one. Let's stick that in there, see if that works. No, so we've got to do that from a elevated process. So again, we'll just hold Control and Shift. And then we'll try and paste that in there. Yes, we want to continue. The WinRM service wasn't started, so it's going to start it. Yes, we don't care about the security implications. This, I'll be honest, this never goes smoothly, setting this. Like I say, there's a couple of different ways to do it, so we'll try the other way. I don't know what it is about this or why it's such a pain and why there isn't like a UI way of doing it. So that's the same way that we were doing it before. Also, it's saying the service isn't started even though we started it before, so let's just open services and see if it's not running even though it said it was going to start it. Windows remote management we're looking for. There's remote management. Let's start that. We'll change it to automatic as well so that it starts with Windows. Now let's try this. Okay, so that seemed like it worked. Let's just do get item. Okay, so that seems to have worked. Like I say, I've found several ways to do this, and sometimes it's real funny about whether you enclose that in speech marks or not. But yeah, there we go. That's one way of doing it. So with that said, let's get back to the rest of the video. So yeah, I think we're nearly done, to be honest. Like I say, there's not that much stuff that I use. Like, I know it's a bit disappointing because you want some fancy tools to play with, but for all the Hack the Box machines that I've done every single Windows one that's been out in the last 6 months, I think, apart from like one insane difficulty one, I think. And that wasn't like for lack of tools or anything, that was just lack of knowledge or lack of wanting to spend any more time on it. you don't need that many tools. Do you know what I mean? Like, if I can get root on all the Windows machines with just the stuff that you've seen me install here, then that kind of proves that you don't need Metasploit, you don't need Bloodhound, you don't need all these other things. Obviously they can help, but I've just never needed them, so I've never got around to installing and learning how to use them. Oh, one thing I have just remembered actually that I forgot is dnSpy. This is a good tool for decompiling .NET programs and viewing the original source code. If you don't know, basically .NET programs can be decompiled back to pretty much the original source code. Like, it's not like decompiling a normal executable where you're pretty much stepping through assembly code. This is, you'll just see the code almost as the author wrote it. In fact, I'll give you a quick demonstration of that. We'll use it on one of the tools that I wrote. When it eventually opens, there we go. We can open a file with it, so we'll just go File, Open, and we'll open one of those tools that I wrote. Let's just do the UI, and then you'll see that if we look into the actual classes inside it, let's look at, say, the command line client class. It does add all this text, which I don't like. By default, you can turn some of these things off, but basically it'll show you each of the properties, and then when we get down to functions and stuff, you can actually see pretty much the original code that was written. Personally, I use Visual Basic rather than C#, but you can change it to be whatever language you want, because all .NET code compiles down to the same stuff. So any of these languages here, C#, Visual Basic, well, IL is what it compiles down to. So this is what actually gets stored in the executable. It's not very easy to read, but it's slightly better than assembly language. And then basically what this program does is decompiles it back to one of these languages. So we'll pick Visual Basic, and then, yeah, we can just look. This is pretty close to the code I originally wrote, where it's looping through and getting a message from the server, checking what type of message it received, throwing exceptions and stuff if it didn't get what it expected, normal kind of thing. So yeah, it's a lot easier to read, a lot easier to see what's going on than if you were trying to decompile a normal like x86 or x64 program. But yeah, let me know if you've got any questions about any of the stuff that was in this one. Sorry I didn't do like a demo of each tool, but you'll have seen them all being used in previous videos or in future videos. This was just kind of showing you what's actually installed on the machine to start with. So the next video is probably going to be the one that I mentioned before, looking at the Impacket get user SPNs script and Kerberos silver tickets. So I will see you there.